Good morning, everyone. Let's see, let me check. It is 8:40 in the morning for me, so if any of you are familiar with makers, we're not morning people, so bear with me. A little bit about this guy up here on stage in front of you. As Brian, I'm sorry, I should have given you the shorter bio to introduce me. Born in the Soviet Union, I'm an immigrant to this country. My microphone just died. Hold on a second. Hello? Oh, there we go. It's back. Came to this country with my parents when I was 7 years old. I went to high school here, but in high school I quickly discovered that I was not bound for higher education. I couldn't get past pre-algebra. I was going to fail high school. Luckily, at the time, there was something called shop class. And my teacher literally said, "You're too stupid for algebra. We're going to put you in shop class to make sure you graduate." It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me and many, many of my friends. Right? I went to shop class. I started in my father's machine shop when I was 14 years old, before the days of OSHA. And by the age of 21, I was a journeyman toolmaker. I was making, at the time, I was 19 years old. I was pulling down $40,000 a year, 1 year out of high school. I was lucky, computers were coming on board. The little shop that we ran, there was a bunch of old Eastern European machinists that knew how to crank handles. And they got this new $500,000 machine that ran by a computer, nothing but buttons. They were all scared to run it. I didn't know any better. I said, "I'll run that machine." And that's how I began my career. So for me personally, without shop class, I think today I would be a hermit under a bridge. I wouldn't know what my value would be to the world if it wasn't for those skills. So after 25 years in manufacturing, after visiting hundreds and hundreds of manufacturing companies, I saw this amazing world of making things. I like to say, micro went to go see the people that herd cattle and clean sewer pipes. I went to visit the people that make space shuttles and movie cameras and blue jeans. Amazing makers. So I got into that world. I went to hundreds of companies, trained them how to use this high-tech equipment. But then I noticed in the late 90s, early 2000s, those same companies I went to train and interact with, they started calling me saying, "Gee, where are the people we need?" The schools have stopped making people with hands-on skills. Because somewhere in the 90s, this movement of, we don't make things in this country anymore, everyone should go get a degree, right? Or you're a nobody. Well, let me tell you, my generation created a lot of amazing things that didn't require a degree. So the more I dug into it, I found out that we were getting rid of shop classes. The shop teacher retired, no one else to teach it, they're expensive to maintain, this equipment's getting old, we're getting rid of it. So what do we have today? We have something called the skills gap. Right? This country has the technology, this country has the facilities, but this country does not have the people that are makers. And when I used to give this speech 5 years ago, the word Makerspace didn't exist. The word maker movement was known by very few people. So I'm very thankful that most of you here are familiar with what the maker movement is and the impact it can have. So I'm going to take you through a quick slideshow about the maker movement. And I love the fact that more and more that everyone is aware of what the maker movement is. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of history and where we are today and how, if you really want to scare yourself, you Google something called the skills gap. If you want to see salvation, you Google the maker movement. And you can see how one will solve the other. Because we are a country of makers. And the folks at the top there in the black and white pictures, I expect each and every one of you to know who they are. Because when I do this in front of high school kids, they have no idea. All right? So we got Edison up there. We got Hedy Lamarr, this beautiful actress who was played a part in creating radar, who helped us win World War II. We got Franklin, we got my man, Thomas Jefferson, and if you've seen Hamilton, God, I love Thomas Jefferson even more. So, but along the bottom, you see the things that are created today. You see the people that are in makerspaces, that are being the future Thomas Edison being the kind of people that your company's manufacturing desperately needs. And let me tell you, we have a history as makers, right? From the 40s to the 80s, we had shop class. A kid goes into high school, and pretty quickly you determine you're bound for an academic path or you're bound for a vocational path. And you made that choice. And it was an easy choice, and you had classes available to you, right? In the 1990s, we had this academic shift in strategy, and everyone was funneled toward higher education. Nothing against higher education. This is an amazing institution, but not every one of our students needs to be here, at least not immediately, all right? People need choices to discover who they are. In the early 2000s, shop classes, let me tell you, especially in California where I'm from, they're almost gone. They're gone. There might be one home ec class in the middle school in a 50-mile radius, and that's a damn shame. And they wonder why their graduation rates are so awful. People are not discovering their paths. They're not given a choice. I'd like to give the example of Europe and Germany, right? Germany tried to destroy Europe twice, and now they're saving it. And how are they saving it? Students in middle and high schools are put on either a vocational path or an academic path. And let me tell you, at any point they can switch, but at least they have a path. And that's something we need to do in this country, because we have a problem. There are not enough people that are getting the kind of skills that our advanced manufacturing companies need. It's the truth. And who am I to speak about what universities do? Well, let me tell you, I worked for 5 years in the University of California. I ran their instructional labs, and I ran their machine shop. And I'm going to tell you something that scared me. I had a fourth-year engineering, mechanical engineering student come to me and ask me for a plus screwdriver. Folks are, Phillips, yes, I know, a plus screwdriver. And I said, thank God you asked me and not your first employer, because they would fire you that day. And it's not his fault, it was our fault that he didn't know it was called a Phillips. All right? And these students would come to me to design their senior design project in their 16th year of education, never setting foot in a shop with equipment. All right? And some of their senior design projects were not very impressive. Yes, there are some impressive schools, but folks, we need to start teaching our kids how to use their tools. Because every small business that I talk to, and I ask them, would you hire a kid out of high school? They go to do what? Push a broom around? If they show up. Now let me tell you, in my place today, we take high school dropouts, we put them through about 2 months of classes, and those kids get hired. And they get hired to run equipment, they get hired to run automation, they get hired to help the engineering department make what the engineers design after only a few months of training. And what I do can be done in this building, it can be done in your local makerspace. It's not magic, it's teaching fundamental skills. So as you can see here, the skills gap is a massive problem, all right? No society in the history of this planet survives as a service. We must be manufacturers. We must make things. And if we don't make things the world needs, the world will no longer need us. All right? We make a lot of stuff in this country, and we need people that physically make it. So luckily, in the 2000s, something called the maker movement starts to grow in this country. Maker fairs. Dale Doherty, who I consider the grandfather of the maker movement, puts out Make magazine. It takes the place of what popular mechanics and popular science used to be. Kids are starting to tinker. Nerd culture is becoming popular, all right? It used to be the jocks and the beauty queens. No, the nerds rule the world, all right? Because of comic book heroes, who doesn't want to be Iron Man, right? These kids love tinkering and making, and we can take advantage of that desire, all right? In 2006, the first Maker Fair happens, and I think you've had a Maker Fair. A gentleman spoke earlier about the Maker Fair you've had here locally. I had a Maker Fair in our town a few years ago. It is phenomenal. If you've never been to one, go there and recruit your employees. There are some brilliant people there. In 2007, some large makerspaces start to open up, because makerspaces go back 20 years, right? But the large ones start to open up, and the word spread. But makerspaces have to be more than just places where people go to tinker and play. They have to be places of learning skills, right? Everything that's a play or a toy becomes a fad and it passes. But if we make maker spaces in our schools, in our communities, places of learning skills, those skills, hello, there you go. Those skills stay with you forever. That's the difference. If it's play, it passes. If it's skills, it sticks. I just made that up, but I'm going to keep that. So, making is starting to come back slowly and outside of our schools. My place, Vocademy, exists because of my frustration with the educational system for two reasons. Number one, they're not teaching these skills and they're leaving a lot of people behind. And number two, coming from manufacturing, going, I need people. The people I took, the companies I have long discussions with, need people with maker skills. So by creating more makers, you solve the skills gap. And it can't only happen outside of schools. And let me tell you, I've spoken with enough school districts that they tell me their budgets don't allow to bring back shop classes. They can't find the instructors because they all have gray hair and they're retiring. But we must solve this problem, whether we do it with community makerspaces or Vocademies or putting makerspaces back in our schools. We know this works. And because the third industrial revolution is coming, and we need people to power that revolution. And they're all around us, and they're of all ages. What is the maker movement today? It's huge, and it's growing. When I started talking 5 years ago, no one knew what a makerspace was. No one knew what the maker movement is, and that's changing. We have t-shirts that we sell that say Maker Pride, because we're trying to show people that if you work with your hands, you should be proud of who you are. You're an artist, right? This gentleman here that's drawing, he's an artist. I am an industrial artist. What I make and create out of metal goes into a portfolio. When I go for a job, guess what I show them? My body of work. And that impresses people. So beyond just having a piece of paper, you should have a portfolio, a maker portfolio. And that's something we love to see incorporated into engineering degrees and along with your high school diploma, your body of work. Maker movement is growing. I'm sure you're all familiar with Etsy and the impact that has on people's lives and the economy, and eBay, and the fact that we have the internet, that in my town I have a gentleman who makes belts. There's $60 belts that he handcrafts. I would much rather pay $60 for a belt that'll last 10 years than pay $10 for a belt made by Chinese slave children. Because in reality, sometimes it's what it is. I want that money to stay here. Because making more makers keeps manufacturing here and keeps our money here. I want to brag a little bit. The first White House Maker Fair happened in 2014, and for some odd reason, I was invited. It was one of the best days in our lives, but it shows you the maker movement has really picked up some steam when you're invited to the White House for starting a makerspace. And that was amazing. I met some incredible people. I do want to point out that there's a picture of me there, and I've never taken a selfie in my life. My first one was in the White House bathroom. Beat that. So it was an amazing day. I met my heroes, Dean Kamen, Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was awesome, and all these folks are part of our movement. They're the champions. They're the people that are out there pushing. Mike Rowe, we're all familiar with Dirty Jobs. These are our ambassadors, but after today, you're all part of the maker movement ambassadors, right? Because if you're manufacturers, you're going to need these people. If you're educators, you need to be making these people. There's a very strong connection there for both of us. Maker movement is happening, and schools and industry is missing out. My goal is to connect the two. My goal is to show that schools listen to what companies are saying, because they're going to be hiring those people that you create. And industry, what I'm telling you is to support the schools with the equipment and the people they need. Volunteer your time in a school telling the kids about all the opportunities in the world of manufacturing, right? And schools, bring back the curriculum that teaches these trades, these hands-on skills. Because let me tell you, today, trade schools still exist. some shop classes still exist, but if you take Johnny or Joni, who barely survived high school, and you throw them into a trade school, it's taking a kid who can't swim and throwing him into a deep end of a pool. But with a makerspace, that young adult can go and discover all the different skills and opportunities in the world of making, find the thing that interests them, then take them down that path. So you have to remember that we must give our students, our young adults, our community members, places to where they can discover what part of making they love. So the other thing the maker movement can do is lower our dropout rates. When I went to school, shop class was the stick, as I gave you my example. Go into shop class, you need it. Today, makerspaces are a carrot. I have students today that come from our educational partners, our charter high schools, and they tell us, if it wasn't for Vocademy classes, I would have dropped out of school. We go back to the teachers and say, you can use that to your advantage. You want to keep going to Vocademy and take 3D printing and laser cutting and sewing? You need to turn it into homework, and the kids, they do it. What an amazing difference that we can take advantage of, right? So, what is a makerspace? It's a kitchen table and scissors and paper, or it's a 15,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility. It's up to you what you make of it. So it's not a budget issue. You do what you can with what you have. But the important part is teach skills. Teach something new every day. Teach something that they want to learn. Give them opportunities to create, something to be proud of. In an English class, if I make a mistake on a test, it's an F. In a makerspace, if I make a mistake, I get to do it again, and I get to do it better, and I get to learn. What a different way of learning. And by the time these students get to your companies, because we're talking about employers here, they've made their mistakes. They won't do it on your dime. They come in, they're safe in your environment. They go in, they're capable. They go in there with some fundamental skills that they won't stick their hand into that dangerous piece of equipment. They'll know what safety glasses are for. They've shown you that they can start and finish a project because they've shown you what they can do. So where do makerspaces fit in? Hands-on education. Get tools. Get tools in their hands. Connecting people. In my place on a Friday night, 5 minutes before we close at 10 o'clock, there is a millennial having a deep conversation with a gray hair. Where else can that happen? And they're talking about their love of making. And they might both be talking about their Hello Kitty costume, or they could be talking about the nuclear reactor they're thinking about building. And it's amazing the conversations that happen because just like an art studio, just like a musician's place, they've bonded around something they love, and that's making things. In the makerspace, you have to give them a variety of things to try. That's what we are. We're a place of discovery. Then they know where they want the depth. We teach over 14 subjects. Makerspaces can start with 1 and go to 20, as many as they want. In our case, it's all about advanced manufacturing. And let me tell you, basic woodworking, welding, that's advanced manufacturing. Because you might be making a bed frame, or you might be making a race car. It's the same fundamental skills. Our goal is to bring back hands-on learning. Everyone's talking about STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. You want to throw the A in for art, make it STEAM, perfectly fine. But without hands-on, you're going to have a student asking you for a plus screwdriver. All right? If you do it all on a laptop or an iPad, it's not enough. You need to take CAD, you need to 3D print it, you need to assemble it. We have students that come in and draw a 1-inch diameter pin and try to put it into a 1-inch diameter hole that they drew, and they don't understand why it doesn't fit in real life. They need to be taught tolerancing. They need to be taught geometry. These are lessons that can only happen in the real world of physical objects. And let me tell you, we have students taking makeys instead of selfies. Let me explain. Instead of pointing a camera at them, they point a camera at the thing they've made and they show off to their friends. Talk about a level of pride that elevates them above every one of their peers. It's astonishing what happens. Education wants the 4 C's. There's no better lessons than the 4 C's in a makerspace. Collaboration, common sense, communication, and creativity. These things happen automatically in a makerspace. It doesn't have to be forced. Because you're not necessarily telling them what to make, you're giving them the tools to be creative, and you support them. We need to give everyone in our communities access to a makerspace where they can explore. As industry, as manufacturing companies, it is an incredible source of creative and talented people. Every employer wants to hire someone who thinks outside the box. Well, I'm going to show up with a group of people that can make the box for you, not just think outside of it, and do it in a dozen different ways.
Right. It is something. Come back to me.
Hold on, here we go. So, in our space today, we are a pipeline for advanced manufacturing employees. We take people from 4 hours of class to 400 hours of class, and the best thing is, it's up to them what they learn, when they learn, and how much to learn. And it's the exact opposite of the way education normally works. They pick how much. And when you have a person learning something because they want to, those are the ones you want to hire. Because they're doing it not because they're forced, they're doing it because they love making things. So for education, the carrot. Makerspaces are the reason kids are staying in school. We've proven it for over 4 years now, and thousands of other makerspaces are doing it too. All right? It's fantastic because it teaches you fundamental life skills. I don't care who you are, you should know that it's called a Phillips. All right? For all of us. Because it's important for us to have these fundamental skills as a human being. For companies, these are the kids you want to hire. Kids, anyone under 30. Even college kids, they need these fundamental skills to be functional human beings. You can't imagine how many engineers in my career I've dealt with that draw things I can't make. But if you had engineers who know how to make things, your companies win. They'll design $1 million part that needs to sell for $10 will never work. But if they know how things are made, and let me tell you, I have companies sending me their grown-up adult employees to learn machine shop and their engineers so they know what a machine shop can do for them. That's what a makerspace can do for you. I can discuss how Vocademy works in the future, but I want to let you know that Vocademy is going to go countrywide. I want 1,000 locations, but I think in the case of this town, you're going to have a wonderful makerspace that's going to be opened up here in a very, very near future by Deborah and Brian, and I look forward to helping them with every step of the way, and I hope you participate in that makerspace because it can become the hub for making in this community, the place where you go as employers to find people, where people go to find their maker community, and it becomes a magical space because that's what's happening in my space in California, and it's a wonderful feeling. So I need you to do a few things for me. So if you're a school, start a makerspace, little tiny one in your library dedicated to school. If you're a school district, go out and get the grant funding to open up more makerspaces. If you want to teach STEM, it must be hands-on. Colleges, don't fall for that college for everyone mantra. Just help, start, fund, support your local makerspace because just like there's restaurants in the community to serve different needs, there can be just as many maker spaces, and we all benefit. Support a local maker fair, and please, the last thing I'll leave you with is become an ambassador for the maker movement. When you talk to a young adult, don't ask them what school they're going to. Ask them what problem in life they want to solve. And if that problem involves making something, point them to their local maker space, and we benefit. Because damn it, someday I want that really fancy robotic wheelchair because my kids aren't going to want to push me around. But they're going to be the ones designing it for me. And I want a really good one. So I'll leave you with the anointment that now you are now the ambassadors for the maker movement. And I hope you all go out there and spread the message. And boy, we're going to make this country just phenomenal when it comes to being the leader in innovation and making things. It's important to all of us. So please join me. Thank you so much.